intrigued by the way her cute snub nose contrasted with her coarsened cheeks, which looked perpetually wind-burnt. She began her next question, and Asher felt his body suddenly hum into attention. He flicked his gaze back to Turlock. Turlock kept still in his seat and tried to look matter-of-fact as he explained that, yes, he had killed Abson, and then explained why. But the leaden shadow on Turlock's face shifted slightly as his cheeks tightened and the dark eyes glittered and expanded just enough. Asher knew he had found what he needed. Turlock said, "He had the brains of a gopher. That's what you do with gophers. Run 'em over with your truck." 2. That evening, Asher pulled into the legislature grounds. The guard at the driveway entrance remembered him and waved him through with a smile. There were even more concrete barriers set around the building than there had been 6 months earlier. The square between the building and the reflecting pool was blessedly empty. Only a few leaves rustling along the artificially pebbled walking surface broke the quiet. The precise ranks of petunia and coleus in the flower gardens along the building's front wall were gone. Dark clumps of dirt formed a repetitive geometric pattern in their place. The earth had been turned for the winter. Asher could smell the earth in the cool air. It reminded him of when he had lived in a house with a yard and a wife who liked gardening. He strode up the steps 2 at a time, picked up a visitor's pass at the security desk, and walked past the indoor fountain toward the stairs to the executive office. He wondered again why water was used here as the standard symbol for dignity and authority. Maybe because the shadow of the dust bowl still hung over people, even if they were no longer directly aware of those times. It was hard hanging on to dignity and authority when your topsoil and your money were racing to see which would blow away faster. Inside the executive suite, he headed for the premier's office. He opened the door and saw Ryan leaning back against a desk, scanning sheets of paper. That was a surprise. Asher stopped halfway across the room and put on his cordial smile. "Hello, Gerald." Ryan had been expecting him, but that didn't matter. He never looked surprised at anything. He looked up from under his bristle of thick red hair and said, "Hello, Harry. Good to see you again. He's waiting." They walked into the inner office, an expanse of space with vintage oil paintings on every wall and well-stuffed chairs covered in pastel fabrics. Asher thought once again that Jimmy Karamanlis would never look like he belonged in this setting. He knew that Karamanlis did not care and would never bother changing the room's style. Turning the corner hutch into a hidden bar had been the only renovation necessary when the government changed. Karamanlis glanced up from the telephone and motioned Asher to a chair as he finished. "Well, I'm glad to hear that, Mrs. Mallard. I'm sure the pension folks just made a mistake. We'll get it straightened out." "All right. Thank you, and be sure to say hi at the convention next month." "That's fine. Bye." He broke into a grin as he stood up and walked around his desk to grasp Asher's hand in one of his meaty paws. The light nearly glinted in his eyes, but their deep brown color absorbed too much of it. His body always seemed to absorb everything in its gravitational field: food, drink, sounds of conversation, expressions on faces, ripples of emotion, people. "It's been too long, Harry. You're looking good. I'm glad you could make time for this. Drink?" He walked over to the hutch. Asher turned to watch him, feeling the nagging stiffness spreading from his left arm to his shoulder and neck. "No, thanks. Still working hours." "And I suppose you're going to tell me you're driving. Gerald tells me you drove up in a green Jaguar." "That's right," Asher said, not looking at Ryan. "I wouldn't want to jeopardize my driver's license or my license to practice. You just have voters to answer to. I have the Law Society. But that aside, it's still working hours." Asher wondered why he had agreed to take a look at the trial, wondered again why he had ever agreed to do anything for Karamanlis. But he knew why. Wherever Karamanlis was, there was human warmth. There was also the possibility of an interesting job or, with luck, a job dangerous enough to be exciting. Karamanlis came back with a glass of ouzo. He considered the way Asher had turned to watch him go across the room and back. He knew Asher's left arm was a little arthritic and suspected that on bad days the stiffness might spread toward the shoulder and neck. He never felt sorry for him. A lot of people lived with